Historical studies about this old town have been written in all European languages. The town is very attractive. Apart from all trade roads, it became the most important center of royal treasury in the 14th century. It was the residence of the Chamber feudal institution, and more than half of present-day Slovakia was under its control. Underground golden fields attracted foreigners from all parts of Europe. Not only miners, technicians, but also outstanding artists. Their common work, left behind, has considerably enriched knowledge of the Middle Ages cultural and economic life. The first documents about the town are dated from the 14th century, but gold mining in Kremnica presumably started in the 8th and 9th century. The old legend tells about Jarabica Hill, northwest of the town, where lords of Cecil Castle shot a quail on a hunt and they found shreds of pure gold in its innards. But reality was much more complicated. It has been shown that the first miners were carried there to a very distant land in that time by the gold-bearing Kremnica river. Quite clearly, a long time before Kremnica was given a town's charter, it had a very advanced mining industry, and everything connected with it had existed there before. Mining mills, smelting works, and stamp mills. Gold in proportion to silver was 1 to 10 in the 13th century, but at the end of the 13th century and at the beginning of the 14th century, value of gold had started to rise to 1 to 20 and more. Gold started to determine prosperity of the state. Charles Robert, a sovereign, wanted to bring a valuable gold currency into force. There was the largest gold reserve in Kremnica. Therefore, in 1328, Kremnica had been promoted to be a town, and he gave the right of coinage and mining to it according to Kutná Hora's right. At the same time, it became the residence of a mine and mint chamber, which till that time had resided at the sovereign's court only. In 1329, experts invited from Kutná Hora started to coin silver Hungarian groschen, very similar to those of the Czech land. Later on, they started to coin golden florins, Kremnica's ducats, which Charles Robert had in mind when he intended Kremnica to be the residence of his royal chamber. The first Hungarian Kremnica's ducats had names and painting according to Florentine golden coins, but they were a little bit heavier. The secret of success rested mainly in that fact. It was necessary to coin such an amount of them to convert gold currency. According to the historian's calculations, in 1335, for example, 30,000 pieces were made from Kremnica's gold. Mining had been increasing year by year. A miner who had good luck earned a ducat for 8 working days. His work was very appreciated in the 14th century. Mint masters were also highly remunerated. 8% of the coin's value belonged to them. Gold and silver, not only from Kremnica, was brought to the royal house but also to the residence of a feudal lord who assigned carat to gold and stamped it with a royal seal. At the lord's residence, a new church consecrated to St. Catherine was built. It was connected with mint workers coming from Kutná Hora and St. Catherine worship, and the names of mint workers also revealed that they were of Italian Florence by origin. St. Catherine has appeared in a town heraldic. The Church of St. Catherine is a double-nave Gothic building with a short but wide nave, long presbyterian and 2 chapels. According to the shape of the church, we assume that after reconstruction in the 15th century, it was originated in 2 buildings. One of them was originally a residence of Lord. Immaculate's statue is a statue on the roadside on the way to the castle precincts. The bust under the pulpit shows the master builder of the church who fell down from the tower and killed himself before finishing it. In one of the shrines, the statue of late Gothic Virgin Maria has been located. There was a small churchyard originally in the castle precincts where prominent burghers were buried. Some boards on the walls and some statues were brought over from a former person's church. A tower was built later on, reconstructed in the Renaissance style. The original one burned in a fire in 1560. A new tower was built to function as an observation post and a watch house. The oldest buildings in the town belong to the church, which was built according to the Lord's wish, Jolinus Kratzer, in 1385. These buildings are near the town hospital. King Ludovít Velký, as early as in 1382, donated village Veterník to the town hospital. The original Gothic interior of the church has remained. The oldest documents of Kremnica town archives date back to 1254, a period when town rights had not been given yet. The oldest seal from 1331 pictures King Charles Robert and the mining mills. The other symbolize St. Catherine worshipping. Catherine with a sword, it is the symbol of the fortified town. A town also had secret seals, and it has evidence that it freed itself from dependence of royal lord, and the town administration became the responsibility of patricians and burghers. In the first half of the 15th century, burghers built a town hall in the art gallery of the castle wall. The upper floors had been destroyed and only the lower part survived as the town archives. The town authorities attributed a big importance to them. In a document from 1656, it has been written that well-equipped archives are the soul of a town. The inscription over the door has been traded. Here the dead live and the dumb speak. Kremnica archives are unique. Besides the treasure of the oldest documents, it has been remarkable from the 15th century as a town on a head of 7 mining towns confederation. Here Kremnica, Banská Štiavnica, Banská Bystrica, Pukanec, Nová Baňa, Ľubietová and Banská Bela belonged. Protocols from deliberation have spoken about common economic and military operations. As archivists, their work was very noted, and as historians and publicists from the second half of the 18th century. Till the year 1775, there were more than 80,000 documents registered. One of unique specimens has been the town book, which had been written between 1426 to 1700. The book is much older, only its first chapter, and the notary Peter, who had been writing it, was sentenced to death. There was dissension between the lord and the town. King Sigmund made an investigation of the dissension, and he did not find notary and other burghers guilty, but verdict on book had been already done. The archives were quoted more strictly, especially in commotion and war from that time. In 1945, the archives were walled up in the town and opened only after front line has passed. Documents about mines and mine manufacturers have survived only thanks to the town archives. State documents burned on fires so frequent in Kremnica. Therefore, documents about mine catastrophe in the 15th century, when the mines squeezed on the foot of Jarabica, have been missed. Trap cellar uncovered vestiges of mining from the previous centuries. So appearance of the hill's foot had been changed also from the town's castle view. The legend has described this event. Miners working in underground suddenly heard a loud clamor. Schicht aus. The shift has finished. It is said that it was a highway gust. Those who did not go up to the pit because they had found a rich gold vein died in the mine. A highway gust punished them for grasping the gold. Miners were very superstitious. They believed in the legends on the shade of the mountains, cobalt. Many legends on Kremnica are similar. Cobalt punishes a miner for his avarice, but often would save his life too. For instance, cobalt would offer a miner to work together. They would exploit a lot of gold and would be given many gold ducats. When they portioned out the money, the last remaining ducat should be given to cobalt. If the miner should leave it for himself, he would be struck with a bad luck. Gold, its different forms and mysterious shapes in cavities of silicon, provoked fantasy. It is said that cobalt is a small man with a long beard. But be careful. Nobody can paint him because he will do bad things. Only illustrators of children's stories in the 20th century could achieve this. Another legend about Myslinis was graphically illustrated. A cat was set to unearth gold and gave it to a girl. She became a rich lady. Once poor people came there under her window and asked for bread, and a lady spoke harshly to them. "I would rather give it to the pigs." And in that moment she became a pig. It has a moral indeed. Kremnica gold attracted foreigners for several centuries. New miners came there especially from the Alps. This process has been recorded in paintings. New miners, white, old, black. A lot of paintings have described their conciliatory and pleasant. Immigrants, mostly experienced miners, brought up not only new technology, but also new habits and traditions. There were German miners, especially those who started to consider St. John's Church between villages Dolný Turček, Krahule and Kremnické Bane as the center of Europe. There were more places in Europe understood as the center. Geographical estimates in the 18th and 19th century seem to be the most objective, especially in Kremnica surroundings. In fact, this was a symbol which expressed glory of this town. On King Zigmund's call in 1405, the town became a fortification. The stone walls encircled 30 patricians' houses, which made a square. The mint was removed into the fortification. As it has been evident from the town accounts book in 1423, when the stone walls had been finished. The town's fortifications were in Gothic style, horizontals dissected in regular intervals by verticals of high bastions with semicircles, portals and gates. There are linked the fortification of a town castle. Fortification of the town was in conjunction with the development of the town life. Outside the fortification were the centers of miners, merchandisers and rich craftsmen. The defensive system was completed by an underground passage system. There were 2 underground passages leading from each basement of a house in a square. One leading to the town castle and another to the bastion of the town fortification. The original Kremnica castle had much more higher wall and several bastions. The main entrance into the castle through the high tower gate with shooting towers situated in the north and facing the economic center of the town. Originally enclosed by a water ditch. Kremnica castle dates back to the 14th century and was at that time a unique architectonical formation. It represented the residence of secular and religious power. A town castle was an example for other castles in Banská Štiavnica and Banská Bystrica. In the 14th century, other mining towns paid towards Kremnica castle a residence for royalty. The town became one of the biggest owners of feudal land in the 15th century. The king, heavily in debt, was giving his burghers large areas, villages and castles. King Zygmunt, for example, was indebted to the town for 17,000 ducats in 1425. When the members of a royal family visited a castle, the triumphal arch was made at the town gate. Paintings and triumphal arch designs remained from 1751, when František Lotrinský, a husband of Maria Theresia, visited a town, and another one from 1764, when his two sons, Joseph and Leopold, visited Kremnica. They were given symbolic golden keys to the town gate and a mine. They had walked in order to mine a piece of gold by themselves, and so burghers built them memorial stones. After town's fortification, the home guard was established. There was more work for craftsmen, armament workers. Magnificent selections of historical arms have survived in a town museum. Shooting drills became the most favorite games, and a new source of living came into existence: painting of the targets. A lot of target board have been hanging on the walls of burghers' houses, which people practice to be in a good mood. An exhibition of them is still very interesting and amusing. Who and where hit the mark? There have been about 150 in museum selections. A unique technical memorable object of Kremnica has been Turček's water supply. It has been the most important waterworks in the middle-aged Kremnica, which is still working. Reservoirs were built in the 15th century and water supplied the homes. A first reservoir at Kremnické bane, the original part of a stone trough of water supply, can be seen. It linked the mines through which is running over a narrow hollow. This technically very bold work is of 20 kilometers length. By the underground bed, 520 liters per second has been drained of Waag River into Ron River basin. Beyond the last reservoir, water is running into underground. At the depth of 245 meters, it has driven the first underground power station in Europe from the beginning of the 20th century. Turčak's water supply has solved the biggest problem of mining Kremnica in the 15th century. There was water enough for machinery, drive to pulverize and process gold and silver ore. In the middle of the 15th century, there were 40 mining mills and 12 hammer mills. Those mills were with 2 or 4 wheels. The price of a mill was equivalent to that of a burgher's house at a square, in ring of a stone wall. While miners' success was dependent on ore's richness, mint workers had a lot to do during wars, financial crises, state bankruptcies and currencies crises. It doesn't matter whether it was during 30 years lasting war, Joseph I war, Napoleon's war, or even during financial crisis of František Joseph I. Mint workers had nothing to do in affluence times. In 1660, Franciscan church and monastery were built. This order was popular at the Pope's court and among people who were attracted by their sermons and confessions. Some academicians entered this order, and they were the authors of many technical and scientific works. They have participated in cultural and art development of Kremnica. They have established a library of a high worth, and they have done the best to develop musical traditions of the town. The oldest music notations in town archives date back to the 12th century, but the roots of active musicians could be found in the defensive system at the castle tower. There was a Latin school in the town in the 14th century, where music was a very important subject. A lot of outstanding musicians acted in Kremnica, ranging from well-known organists and choir masters in the 15th century to the composers in the 18th and 19th century. Well-known organ builders have been working in the town from the 15th century as Matěj Burian, who had been building and repairing organs for all Ostrihoma Archbishopric from 1568. There was a paper mill in the town from the 16th century. Its water gauge has been found in all documents in all archives in the Middle Europe. Wojciech Anděl, a professor at the town college, made Kremnica famous by revealing paintings and shapes designs. The influence of craftsmen, mint workers and engravers can be seen on the oldest products of guilds. They set themselves too high a target of aesthetics. Thanks to that, guild masters belong to the best prosperous burghers. Shape's resourcefulness guaranteed to products market even into distant European towns. Similar to Kremnica Ducat, all Kremnica products had to be of high quality. They were not allowed to bring Kremnica into disrepute. Very nice goldsmith's work has been the cross of the town court from 1749. In front of it, a lot of interesting stories and tragedies had happened. One of them in 1880, when a mining company directed by Alois Pecháček undermined the center of Kremnica Square. The director was sentenced, but they didn't manage to save Virgin Maria Baroque Church in the center of the town. Only Wojciech Anděl's painting has preserved it. Altarpiece, Virgin Maria's Assumption, by Baroque painter Anton Schmidt from Banská Štiavnica, has been located into Church of Franciscan Monastery. Other his paintings have been exhibited in Kremnica Museum. Shrine piece, St. Catherine's engagement. Statues by famous sculptor of Middle Slovakia, mining towns Dionys Tanetti, also originated in Virgin Maria's Church. To the memory of plague effacement in 1771, there was St. Trinity column built in front of a baroque church. When the church was renovated in 1761, it was transported to Hornaves. A new column has been designed by Dionys Tanetti. Burghers promised to pay 16,000 guldens for it to him. It has been built for 7 years. Tanetti had died by then, and Martin Fogerle, who continued in that work, died too. A column had been finished by Anton Mayer, Tanetti's apprentice. The town very strictly controlled the building cost. A board consisted of burghers refused to pay for 4 statues, apparently not from best quality stone. When reconstructed, some damaged original of the column have been replaced. Houses at the square even today show building elements from the 14th century. They have undergone glorious and bad times. Hussite wars, Turkish wars, civil wars, wars of the estates in which shortage of money brought Bočkaj, Bethlen, Tokoli and Rakoci to Kremnica, all these had been of fatal consequences. The emperor's supporters required gold when the rebels were repressed. Conquerors were celebrated and they were given satisfaction. All those smashes and especially big fire in 1777 caused an unhealable blow in the town. In the 19th century, Kremnica was much poorer than it had been. On the other hand, it was the first town in Hungary with public electric illumination. Kremnica has been standing out for its surroundings. Kremnica's peak above the eastern part of a town has been the oldest and largest nature reserve in Kremnica mountains. Typical stone formations have been formed from crumbling front of lava stream, are of various shapes and names. Andesite stone sea has been a part of it. Kremnica has been of ideal surrounding to learn more about nature, history and culture of this old mining town.